I am so worried about making this video. I do not want to represent the Drakensberg as a terrible, dangerous, unhappy place at all. I don't want to do that at all. But what I do want to do is give people some very honest information about what hiking in the Drakensberg is like. The fact that it is just such a magical, beautiful, incredible, wild place is the reason why it does make sense to go and hike there. But it's also a really bad idea to think it's this beautiful, magical, natural, awesome place and forget about all of the things that do make it tough, and that do make it a little bit dangerous in certain situations. Welcome to Roughing It with Ruth, the channel where everything is a bit rough around the edges. So the first thing to say about the Drakensberg is that it is a wilderness area. And what I mean by this is that it is very, very remote and you're very unlikely to have cell phone reception your entire trip, and you're going to be very far from help. The other thing to keep in mind about the Drakensberg being a wilderness area, and that many people don't realize, is that you're not going to have a proper trail to follow the whole time. There are areas in the Drakensberg where there are trails, and particularly in the foothills at the base of the Drakensberg mountain range, there are some areas where there are very nicely manicured trails with signposts and steps built into them, and it's very well marked. But if you're going to do a hike onto the Drakensberg escarpment, you should not expect that this is going to be the case. In many areas, there is not going to be a trail at all to follow. In the wilderness, there are also going to be other people and other animals using the area, so it's very likely that you will encounter some sort of wildlife in the Drakensberg, and it's also fairly likely, particularly if you go up onto the escarpment and go any way into Lesotho, that you will encounter other people, such as the Basotho shepherds that herd their cattle and donkeys and sheep in Lesotho, or smugglers who smuggle marijuana up and down the Drakensberg mountain passes, or you might just meet people who live there. There are many people who live in Lesotho and in various parts of the Drakensberg, particularly the northern Drakensberg and the Mweni area. There are people who have their homesteads there, who have their farms there, and you can encounter any of those kinds of people. My point being that in this wilderness area, you're not going to exclusively encounter hikers. You are going to encounter people who are doing other activities, and you may also encounter wildlife. Okay, and then the second thing that is quite important to remember with the Drakensberg is that it is a mountain range. Both of those words are important here. It's a range of mountains that spans a huge area, so different parts of the Drakensberg can be really, really, really different. The southern Drakensberg versus the northern Drakensberg, all the different places in between. So it's a little bit difficult to talk about the Drakensberg as a whole, because there are parts of it that are going to be slightly easier and parts of it that are going to be slightly harder, and very different terrain between those two things. So just keep that in mind. But the word mountain, I think, is the part that we really need to focus on here. The Drakensberg is a mountain. So this means that there are specific issues that come with hiking there that you really need to keep in mind. One of those things is the fact that in mountainous areas, the weather can change really quickly. So if you're used to hiking in more low-lying areas, then really try to remember this. The weather can change unbelievably fast, and because it's a mountain, it can have basically any weather you can imagine. Wind, rain, snow, mist, every kind of weather can happen. And then, of course, because it is a mountain, you are going to expect that it will be fairly steep. Many people do not appreciate until they actually get there how steep the Drakensberg is. If you are hiking up onto the escarpment, you are going to be doing a massive amount of elevation gain. It is going to be really, really, really steep. Even the Drakensberg passes that are touted as being slightly easier passes, where there is an actual trail, it is going to be very, very steep. And going steeply up and steeply down is extremely taxing. And then whenever you're around a mountain, you should always keep altitude in mind. Altitude can affect you in the Drakensberg depending on the type of person you are, your level of fitness, and where you live. There is a chance that you could get altitude sickness or have some kind of complications from the altitude. So make sure that you educate yourself about altitude sickness. Then the Drakensberg mountain range can be extremely technical in a lot of places. Instead of hiking, you may find yourself scrambling or crawling up grass tufts or boulder hopping, doing scary river crossings, walking on very loose eroded rocks. And the more technical the terrain is, the more dangerous it can be. So you do want to keep that in mind, that there could be very technical and slightly dangerous areas that you're hiking on. Okay, so now that I've gone over some basics of what you can expect in the Drakensberg, I'm going to talk about ways that you can deal with these things. All you need to do is try to mitigate the risk slightly. One way that you can do that is to try to physically prepare for hiking in the Drakensberg. So try to make sure that you are fairly fit and that you have practiced walking with a fully loaded backpack, and that you have practiced going up and down steep terrain quite a lot. Now, honestly, I have to add here, don't feel like because you have put a huge amount of effort into your training, you're not going to have a hard time in the Drakensberg, especially if it's your first time. So it is a good idea to prepare your body physically, but don't expect that preparing your body physically is going to completely remove all of the discomfort from your trip. I would say that you should expect a certain amount of discomfort on a Drakensberg hike. Then one of the best ways to mitigate risk. I am so incredibly passionate about this particular topic. I wish that I could make every backpacker and hiker out there as passionate about this as I am, because it would make everybody's lives safer. Please, 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 please get some first aid skills and some navigation skills. I'm going to speak about first aid first. If you do not know what you're doing when it comes to first aid, there is the chance that you could actually make things worse. And because you're going into a super remote wilderness area where there is no help, you're it. You have to have those skills. If you or one of the people you're hiking with needs some sort of medical help, you are going to have to sort it out. Even if you have cell phone reception by some miracle and you can call mountain rescue, it is going to take them a while to reach you, and you have to be able to help yourself and help the people around you, because there isn't any other help out there. So please, 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 just go and do a first aid course, because you can save somebody's life, you can save your own life, and you can prevent yourself from accidentally harming someone with good intentions, which I think would just be the most terrible feeling ever. And then just as important as first aid is navigation skills. You need to be able to read a paper map, and you need to be able to use whatever GPS device you might be taking with you, whether it's your watch or a handheld GPS or an app on your cell phone. Make sure that you know how to use it and you know how to read it. And a paper map you absolutely have to take with you, even if it's just as a backup. Because if you accidentally drop your GPS into a river, maybe it's waterproof and that's wonderful, but maybe it also floats down the river and over a waterfall and it's gone forever. And if you don't have some kind of backup, you're going to have a really bad time. And then another way that you can mitigate risk is actually really fun, which is just to try out and experiment with all of your gear before you get into the wilderness area. So make sure that you don't buy anything new and then take it with you into the Drakensberg immediately. Rather, make sure that you try it out at home, test out all the ways of setting it up, that you know how to put up your tent, for instance, because that is going to save you a lot of drama on your hike. And related to that, definitely test all of your gear before you take it into the mountains. And by this, I mean make sure that it is not broken or about to break or has some fatal flaw in it. Make sure that even if you are really experienced at using all of your gear, make sure that your inflatable sleeping pad doesn't have 1,000 holes in it. Make sure that your backpack is still working. Make sure that when you lent your tent to that one friend of yours, they didn't accidentally break something and forget to mention it. Okay, and then I know there are going to be lots of people who are going to disagree with me on this, but I feel fairly strongly that you should not go into the Drakensbergs, particularly the high Drakensberg, so the escarpment area. I don't think it's a good idea to go alone. No matter how experienced you are and how many first aid and navigation skills you have, and you might be the fittest person on the planet Earth, you're alone out there. And because it's a wilderness area, you are very alone. If you fall down somewhere and knock yourself unconscious, that's it. You are the rescue party and now you're unconscious, which is a scary thought. So I really don't recommend going into the Drakensberg on your own. And if you are new to the Drakensberg, if you're going there for the first time, oh please do not go on your own. Really do not go on your own. And related to that is make sure that you're comfortable with the people that you will be hiking with. So make sure that the people that you're going with are actually experienced. It can be a little bit difficult to tell if you're a very inexperienced backpacker. It can be difficult to tell if the person that you're assessing is an inexperienced backpacker, but you can just try to find out as much information as possible. People often want to share all of their hiking stories, so use that to your advantage. Get them to talk about all of their previous trips. And if there's something about their stories that makes you uncomfortable to hike with them, then seriously reconsider your hiking plans. And then the last thing that you can do that can greatly mitigate risk is to do a lot of research about where you're going to be hiking. This is particularly important in the Drakensberg because it's such a huge range of mountains and things can change so quickly. Maybe there was a flash flood along the pass that you wanted to hike and now there's no longer a path there. The only way that you're going to know about those sorts of things is to do as much research as you can. The internet is your friend. I really, really recommend a forum called Vertical Endeavor. I'll put a link in the video description below to that forum. They have so much fantastic information about the Drakensberg, and because it's a very active forum, you get very up-to-date information because people post their trip reports or their experiences going to a certain area, and then you have very recent, relevant information that you can draw on. And that's all from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more, then make sure you subscribe to my channel and hit that little bell icon so that you're informed every time I post a new video. And I will see you in the next one.